Welcome everyone to the CW100 podcast. My name is Derek Hampton. I am in Nashville, Tennessee, and I will be one of your co-hosts along with Ashley. This is a podcast where this is for people who have already seen the show. I'm sure you won't be discovering the show from what you hear from us, but you will. So we'll be doing spoilers. We'll be doing foreshadowing, talking about future episodes and kind of how things develop in the later episodes and later seasons. So just let you know that if you hadn't watched the episodes or if you hadn't watched the show, this is not the podcast for you. So all the rest of you, thank you for joining. We appreciate you. And I'll hand it over to Ashley to introduce herself, and then we'll come back with a couple of announcements, and then we'll get started with episode 1, season 1 of the 100. Go ahead, Ash.
Hey, my name's Ashley. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I started watching the 100 after watching another show on Netflix. It came up in the recommended to watch afterwards, and I read the synopsis for it and thought it would be a really interesting show, so I started watching it, and I really got into it. One of the head administrators of the 100 fan group on Facebook loved doing this podcast.
All right, thanks, Ash. Like she said, we are in conjunction with the 100 fan group on Facebook. You can also find us at the CW100 podcast at gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at the CW100 podcast, and you can also find us on the Android App Store. We have a dedicated app called the CW100 podcast on the Android App Store. All the music that you hear on this podcast will come from Bensound. That's BENSOUND. So if you like any of the music, you can find it on that website, bensound.com. Now, for myself, I started watching the 100 because I saw a trailer for it from Comic-Con, and it had to do with space. So anything that has to do with space or anything that has to do the shot in the cold or the snow, I love it. I love sci-fi, and I started watching the show, and I was hooked right from the beginning, even though I kind of was a little disappointed when they came to the ground and it kind of shifted. So with that being said, love the show. That's how I got started. Started from season 1, waiting for the initial episode to jump off. That's what got me in, and I'm still in. So from there, we'll move on into episode 1, season 1, episode 1, and we'll let Ash lead us off from there to set the scene and the tone for our first podcast on this show. Go ahead, Ash.
Oh, okay, so the pilot episode. First glance at the show that we're about to check out. We start off with Clark in her cell, and she's drawing on the floor, and she's just imagining Earth. She's telling us, like all the things that they've heard about it.
Right.
And she quickly snaps out of it and starts explaining the whole nuclear apocalypse and how they came to be on the Ark and why they're there and how things are there. And we get to see a shot of the Ark. And it's just totally mesmerizing. Like, that thing just looked so cool. I wanted to live on it.
Yeah. I mean, if you had to live somewhere in space, that was the place to live. I mean,
yeah.
I was mesmerized by the shots and the scenes and just the world that they had created up on the Ark, and I guess through the sets.
And it was massive.
It's massive. I mean, the scale
compared to some of the other shows.
Yeah.
And other ships where people live in space on TV.
Absolutely.
So, she mentions her people think they have to stay up there for 4 more years. before it's safe to return to Earth.
That's the end
Earth
game,
is the
is to get
dream
back
in
to
the
Earth.
monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, all of a sudden 2 guards come into her room, ordering her to face the wall, and she's just terrified, thinking that they've moved up her execution. She's telling them, like, something must be wrong, it's not time for my review yet, and they're not really listening to her, they're kind of manhandling her a little. She fights them off, and she ends up getting out of her cell. As she goes out of her cell, it pans around a bit, the camera pans around, and you see just a huge cell block full of people, all being taken out of their cells. And she says that she says they call it the skybox, and it's where they keep the juvenile offenders.
Yeah.
As she's saying this, monologuing it to us, her mom comes up and tells her, because Clark's still freaking out, she doesn't know what's going on, so her mom, Abby, runs up and tells her, "Don't worry, you're not being executed, you're being sent to the ground, all 100 of you."
Little do they know.
Yeah. And Clark's freaking out even more at that point. She's like, "What? No, it's not survivable. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, they thought it was just an actual death sentence.
Yeah, and before her mom has time to calm her conscience anymore, Clark gets knocked out by a tranq dart and is put onto the dropship.
So, as they're being thrown on the dropship, unwillingly, because they think they're being sent to their death, it's pandemonium or panic for the 100 that are being sent down to the ground. They're just, you can see they did a good job acting here, because you can see the kind of concern and panic on their face. So what we have for the next scene?
All of a sudden, Chancellor Jawhawk comes on the monitor, telling them that they've been given a second chance. If the Earth is survivable, when the rest of them come down, they'll all be pardoned for their crimes.
Go be a guinea pig, and if you live, we'll let you free. We'll set you free. Deal?
I know, right?
Deal. Nobody's been down there in over 100 years, but hey, look on the bright side. We won't float you. Well, not individually.
Those
we'll
kids deserved more than just a pardon, okay?
Oh, gosh, yeah. But, they didn't expect to see him again, ever. All right.
And he says that they're sending them down because their crimes had made them expendable.
Right.
And I was just like, wow, that's pretty fucking harsh.
Yeah.
Who are you? Damn. And then all of a sudden this kid shouts, "Your dad's a dick, Wells." And I found that was hilarious.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of that type of one-liners that had you laughing throughout the show.
The show has the greatest one-liners.
Absolutely. Led by Jasper, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
All right, next scene.
So now we're back up on the Ark, and the citizens they're demanding answers because they saw the launch. I don't know how they think it's the kids or why they think it's the kids, but they're like, "Are our kids on there?" Like, I don't know how they figured it was the kids, but somehow they were just like, "Are those our kids on there?"
TV. TV magic, TV bull.
So then we're back down. Well, not back down, sorry. We're in the middle of space and Earth on the dropship. And Finn decides to undo his seatbelt and start floating around in 0G. Wells and Clark warn him and 2 other kids not to do it, because they know their science. Like, soon it's gonna not be good if you guys are not in your seatbelts.
Yeah, you're gonna die, you idiots.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, but those kids are done with being told they're done with being told what to do, so they don't listen, and they're floating around. And Finn makes a joke about, hey, check it out, your dad floated me after all. And it's just, you don't really get the concept of it at the time because we haven't really seen a floating or anything yet. So it's kind of just like, what are these kids talking about? They have some weird lingo.
Right. And, this is the first time also we get a sense that Clark is going to be a leader because she's trying to get everybody to kind of settle down and strap their seatbelts and, let's get to the ground alive, all of us, you idiots, and see what we have going on.
So, back up on the Ark, Kane and Sinclair are scrambling, trying to figure out how to communicate with the kids. And they realize that all the ways that they programmed into the dropship to communicate with the kids, to help the kids, is gone. It's not happening. And then they realize that the only way that they're going to be able to have any insight as to what's going on the ground is the wristbands that Abby.
And of course, they're not trying to hear that at all.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we have next?
The dropship landed, and Clark immediately goes to the idiots who decided to go floating to check on them.
Right.
And on the lower level, you hear Bellamy, and he's already telling people what to do. Like, they didn't even open the door yet, and he was already barking orders.
The foreshadowing begins.
And he's, like, telling them to back up, because he's going to open the doors. And Clark can hear him from the upper level, so she goes rushing down, and she's like, don't open those doors.
Right. Because we don't know what's out there.
And then Octavia hears Bellamy, and she comes rushing down, and they have this reunion, because they hadn't seen each other in a lengthy period of time.
Right.
Because of something that we find out happens later on. And people are shouting a bunch of things, and they're like, relax. Octavia says something like, relax, I want to say hello to my brother, or something like that. And someone retorts, nobody has a brother. And then another girl is like, that's Octavia Blake. That's Octavia Blake, the girl they found hidden in the floor. And Octavia just goes to, like, attack the girl, but Bellamy holds her back.
Right.
And then he opens the doors to the dropship, and everyone's just standing there in complete... They're silent, and they're just amazed. Because, like, they'd probably seen pictures of Earth and watched maybe some movies, some of them. But, like, to see it with your own two eyes... They were just in total bewilderment.
Yeah. When they stepped off their ship, the drop ship, and I saw it for the first time, it was like I was being there for the first time because it just looked so barren and untouched and so post-apocalyptic.
Overgrown, yeah.
Yeah, overgrown. They just had great set location for this, so
yeah,
it was definitely a beautiful scene to see come to light.
Vancouver is beautiful. I've never been there, but a lot of my shows I watch are filmed there, so it looks very beautiful.
Well, good. Like I said, it looks beautiful to me too. I mean, the set of the show, them just walking out of the drop ship for the first time, seeing Earth, smelling the air, seeing trees, seeing the vegetation. It's just an amazing sight. They did a great job, and they did a great job of making me believe that there had been the Earth in their entire life. It was just, with their reactions, it was just awesome.
I actually thought Octavia looked the most realistic in that moment when the dropship doors opened and she was kind of like squinting her eyes. Because, I mean, they had never seen that brightness before.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so what do we have next?
Octavia steps on the actual ground